Everybody here, Brady from BGWX. We are live and we're going to be breaking down the upcoming snow that's going to be happening, that is happening tonight currently, and also the snow that's going to be happening tomorrow night. So we're going to take a look and break down what's going on there. And don't mind me as I set up. I am not my usual setup. I kind of just configured it right away, and we're working on short time here because I didn't expect I thought maybe we would stream, but and then I was like, oh, we definitely need to stream, for sure. So that is what we're doing here. So not in don't have the big screen tonight for me, so you get to see me set it up here a little bit. But we're about to get started here in a second. So we get an open up chat here. Maybe not expecting really any people if but if you are happen to be in the chat, then congratulations. But I figured it was warranted enough to discuss, so I had to do it. Let's see, let's get boom. Let's open up the chat here and X as well. All right, we have YouTube chat, we have the X chat going. Alrighty, let's get it going. Alrighty. If you do hear anything in the background, it is my new puppy. That is what you will hear if that is the case. But let's get going here. Alrighty. So, not a lot of winter streams in a while because, in fact, I feel a little rusty almost, but, it's like riding a bike for us. So, let me get to, let's go with the Euro here. Again, how we doing, everybody? We are live breaking down upcoming snow that's happening right now as we speak. Matter of fact, let's go to radar first before we even go there because it is snowing right now. So let's bring up our current radar. And we need our pen tool, don't we? Told you I was rusty. Alrighty. But yes, since I've last streamed, been some severe weather outbreaks, not a ton of snow except for ski country. So nothing too crazy to report about in terms of snow accumulations. No, we're not going to update Epic Pen right now. Thank you. But as you can see, we got the snow going on right now. So let's get that going here. Let's take a look. This is what we got. I got some moderate snow out here going right now. And you know what? We're going to get the local radar going. You can see it's within north a lot of snow. Probably not in the valley if I had. Let me take a quick look at radar again because I wasn't checking. Yeah, about right here. That is your sleet line currently working its way. So northwest of here is a lot of snow going on currently. Again, not extremely heavy, moderate to a heavy, moderate snow roughly. So all in here right now is where you're seeing is snow currently up here. Again, lighter where it still isn't really moved in quite yet, but over some of those darker DBZ colors, if I zoom in a little bit more for you, right here, right around northwest of Providence is about where a mix line is right now. You can see some of those sleet showing up on radar. So this is where we're focusing on right now for moderate to heavy moderate snow. And again, we're overnight, so it's going to be able to accumulate. So let me pull the chat back up here so it's visible. But so that is what we have going on right now. But it is a heavier, wetter snow. So that should be taken into account as well. But what's going on currently that's allowing this to happen? Let's take a look. No, we want to go there. Yes. Let's take a look. So here's 500 millibars. Obviously, you can see there's our big dip in the jet stream here, right? We have big western ridge going on, and that is not thick enough. So let's take a look. We have our big western ridge going on. Take a look at this dip in the jet stream here, right? That's why there's no severe weather with this one. Right, a big part of that is take a look. Big western ridge, and right, moisture is moving up the east coast off the Atlantic. So, versus across the Pacific into the plains, for example, or into the Gulf of Mexico and into the Ozarks here. So that is why you're not seeing a severe weather outbreak associated with this trough. And take a look what happens here. We get this a huge dig in the trough. I mean, this is why we're funneling all this cold air down, and you're getting below average cold air along with a very deep digging trough. So what you're creating is a significant thermal gradient here where we are driving up all of this moisture up the east coast and warm air, and that's meeting this cold air here, and it is taking, even with that, still some dynamic cooling. So let's take upper air, upper air temperature. Take a look at our 850 temperature anomalies. As you can see, for this time of year, below average, right? Below average. There's your colder air in place, and it's below average for this time of the year, well below average in many areas too. And take a look at that thermal gradient we're creating, right? So that warm air coming up the east coast, but that cold air in place over our system, and getting brought down here from this deep digging trough here. And that is what you're going to be able to do if you want to get more classic, snow event, and it just happens to be April. Now, some of the specifics you can see at 500 millibar are a little messy. That is why it looks a little sketchy, because it is a little messy. There's not a clear consolidated upper level low. As you can see all of this kind of comes together. It's pretty messy. Pieces come in to inject in behind the main upper level low. But you can see this is precip overrunning out in front of the main show. The main show really comes tomorrow night, and that's what we're going to focus on a lot, because tonight maybe a coating to 2 inches, depending on where you live. There's not going to be a massive amount. Maybe some isolated higher totals are possible, but this is what's intriguing here. So let's zoom in. We're going to go to east and take a look here. This is what I'm watching. This is what's very intriguing. Again, we talked about a huge dip in the jet stream here that we're working with, and it's not a consolidated, but there is some decent strengthening of an upper level low that's happening here. Again, not super well consolidated, but you can see we are seeing that, just more and more upper level energy move through from the backside and swing around the trough, give an extended period of time potentially. And then also looking at the mid levels, this is where we get driven here with that thermal gradient. We see an area potentially, maybe even a band potentially break out. Take a look at 700. We zoom in even more here. Take a look into the northeast. Look at this area at 700. I'm going to be looking right northwest of here. And I said it would take a miracle. I replied to somebody today. Your miracle is maybe possible in far northwest Jersey, northern Jersey. Can't rule it out into the Hudson Valley. But what I'm watching is a little bit further north, well better placed into that colder air. So we go to upper air and we go to temperatures. Go to 925 here. Take a look at my 925. This is your area here where I'd be watching, especially -2, -3 degrees where you are. This is where I would be watching here potentially for snow, where you're at least 2 to 3 degrees below zero, right? And you have to be here. If you're above zero, you can't snow. That's right. Above the surface here, you can't be above zero here. You can at the surface, but above the surface, if you switch over, then that means it has to be some sort of mix. It's not going to be snow necessarily. And the timing of when this comes in too, take a look. If we go back to we'll use 700 Vort again. Take a look at the timing of when this comes in here. Tomorrow night into Saturday morning is when a lot of this, you can see a lot of this mid-level dynamics come in, and associated with that then also comes the precip itself. So I'm going to use, since I don't really like the p-type maps on pivotal, I don't love, I mean, for general systems, when we're talking about specifics, those aren't really the best tool to use. So let's take a look at that here. I'll show you. Whoa, mesoscale. All right, we'll use the HRR. I don't really love long range HRR, to be honest. We'll use NAM 3K. Uh, I looked at both, so I know both are showing a somewhat similar solution. RGM is showing something a little bit different, but somewhere along the lines. And there you can see that's what's going on right now. And obviously, you can see it's a little bit more widespread than what's being depicted. There's a little bit more going on. So this is where we're going to be looking at again, potentially for accumulation here in this area. This is where we're watching for some potential accumulation overnight. Coating to 1 to 3 inches of snow for some areas. Yes, you are going to wake up and there's going to be snow tomorrow morning if you, unless it melts by the time you wake up. If if you're one of those people, but let me zoom out just a little bit. Here. Did we? There we go. There we go. Or do we want to zoom in? It's fine. We'll go. All right, we can do this. And then here's what happens, right? So we talk about, take a look here at the mid levels, right? So notice what happens. Zoom back out just a little bit into the east. So take a look here as the upper, so all this energy around the backside of the trough starts swinging through and around, and we have this tight thermal gradient that's happening, right? Because of this big, deep digging trough where that cold air comes, comes down and that warm air gets brought up, and here's where the magic happens here at 700 millibars. So still precip that has to happen here, but now it might result in the form of snow because we're getting consolidated enough mid-level dynamics. And we're getting enough dynamic cooling, right? Because take a look here. If we notice, it's not a typical, right? Typically, you see the coldest air usually, right, associated with this big deep swing trough will be back here and further north. But if we take a look at the 925s, what do you notice? Right, take a look. You do see that cold pool back there, but you notice you see a gap in between there. You see that gap, and that has mostly to do with the fact, we'll slide a little bit further. Notice that cold pool, right? The cold pool gets focused here, and that has to do with that's where the heaviest precipitation is. So what's happening is, and we'll take it, and you notice there's cooler air back here, but that gap in between, right? And that's because the heaviest precipitation is right here. And this is a process we call and we often refer to as dynamic cooling. Or we often bring up, I should say, not often refer to it is dynamic cooling, but we play this out. Those mid-level dynamics come up and take a look. Boom, perfect timing overnight, and maybe even depending on it's still hard because models are still, oh, we can't get sounding. So I'm going to use the HRR just especially for dynamic cooling. But let me get the OZ run because that went out farther. Go and boom. So take a look, right? We have that area of convergence happen at the mid levels, especially associated with big trough at 500. And now take a look. Notice it. Dynamic cooling, that rain turning to snow. And so let's get a sounding here. I mean, that works. This works fine. All right, let's zoom in. Or do we need to zoom out? I just want to know. I just more so wanted to zoom in on the sounding. That works fine. Well, it's not as big as I wanted it to show there, but you can roughly see it here, hopefully. So here's our 0 degree line, right? Remember, I talked about it. At the surface, you can cross. So you could be, I mean, you could be 40 something degrees in snow. What was that? I think we were in the 40s a couple weeks ago and we're snowing. It's actually on the way when I was picking up my puppy. It was actually snowing. In I think by the Leicester Paxton border. So here you can't cross. At the beginning is notice a loft here at 500 millibars. It's big. So this is a vertical column, right? So imagine we took this point in place of the atmosphere right here. This is a 3D vertical column of the atmosphere. And so if I go back and I see what's going on here, this is why I like, like connecting this stuff is really cool for me. Take a look how cold we are aloft. See how you can see the 500 millibar signature a little bit better here with the trough, right? Take a look. This is going to line up pretty well with 500 millibar, right? Here's your, that minus 20 line roughly. Look at that, minus 22 degrees all the way into northern Florida at 500 millibars, right? What does that mean exactly, right? It's just going to line up pretty well with the trough, right? Take a look here at 500 millibar Vort. You see that? See how it lines up almost perfectly here with the 500 millibar vort here, right? It's showing you that that cold pool of colder air, or that colder air, that pool of colder air aloft. And that is what we're looking at here. So that colder air aloft, I need to zoom in again. There we go. There. Okay. And so that colder air aloft, the heavier precip brings that colder air aloft down to the surface, and it makes it harder. So you see how you see that this is your warm nose here. This is where it is around 700 to about 850 millibars. And this warm nose wants to cross over and actually probably sleet here on the sounding, to be honest. Close to sleet. Um, and it can't cross though because that colder air aloft, due to the heavier, take a look at the omega. Here's your lift, right? Showing heavy, heavy, rising air, right? That lift. That we looked at that 700 millibar dynamics, right? Showing that support um, for the omega we see here in our sounding, right, to help support some of those dynamic rates potentially looking at, and help overcome this from being rain, and will allow it to be snow instead. So there's that 0 degree line. You never cross it. And even if it was close or kind of crossing, I would always give the edge to heavier rates. Dynamic cooling can tend to work out more times than not, when it comes to heavier rates and very thin margins. Like if you were to cross just barely and come back for a short time, I would give the edge to dynamic cooling when it came to a sounding. All right, so that colder air aloft gets brought down, and take a look at the gradient too. It's a pretty strong thermal gradient from the upper levels down to the mid levels. As you can see, take a look at your sounding here. Uh, See, our dendritic growth zone too is just below 500 millibars, and it's down to about 650, right? So even though we're seeing 33 at the surface in that warm nose, our dendritic growth zone is actually maybe even just below normal. Usually it's around 5 to 600 millibars. You can see all the way down to 700, overperforming in Northeast Connecticut, so wouldn't be shocked. Closing up to an inch in Talan. Yeah. Here's one thing I will say though, Sean, is it's usually easy to stack like that first inch or inch and a half, especially when it's wet, even when wetter snow. But it can be difficult after that to start, accumulating on top. You start getting compaction, even in short periods of time. The wetter snow, it can be difficult. So maybe keep an eye. But yes, accumulating snow across northern Connecticut, northern Rhode Island, and into Massachusetts and central New England is likely tonight, coating to 1 to 3 inches. But I mean, these soundings are impressive. Take a look here. I mean, yeah, we're looking at -2 omega to -1 omega in the dendritic growth zone. I mean, that's very solid lift. We can take other soundings here. I'm always going to be biased to take the Massachusetts soundings because that is where I am from. But let's see, we can do a Connecticut one, do a Northwest Connecticut one. That's a pretty solid sounding too. You're getting close with that sleet line there with that warm nose, but um, that would likely be snow as well. Let's see. Let me get one that time up. Is there one that times up better? Northwest, same thing. I don't know. That could be sleet. It's for a long time that warm nose is having trouble there. Let's see. Go to Northern Rhode Island here. Let's take a look. That's close with dynamic cooling. And that warm nose is a little bit, or the dendritic growth zone is slightly higher, but still about average. Not ridiculously high, actually. It's about 5 to 650 and -2 omega. That would be, it's close here. That warm nose crosses for a while, so that might be sleet um, on the sounding. Probably, I would say sleet snow mix. Moderate snow, still bare ground, Tatnick Square, Worcester. That sounds pretty similar to here in Grafton right now. I believe we started snowing about an hour and a half ago. Might have to check for accumulation. Had to get the board back out and get it. We'll check. We'll see if the car started accumulating the grass whatsoever. But this will be my puppy's first snow. Sorry I talk about him a lot, but he's He's awesome. So he's get to experience his first snow, and it's going to be in April. Let's see. Here's by the New Hampshire border. Still pretty solid. Definitely all snow on this sounding. Again, well saturated in our dendritic growth zone as well. This is below 500, probably about 525 to about 650 with that dendritic growth zone. So pretty solid, decent snow sounding. Honestly, I would look at this and I would say um, it is a wetter snow still. That warm nose is there is still pretty prevalent, but I don't think ratios are going to be as bad tomorrow night potentially as what you would think maybe with an April snow, and in part due to the timing of the snow as well. You got to remember. Take a look at when it comes in. Some people may start as rain, but when those heavier rates come in, you may be able to switch over to a more moderate to heavy snow. Some people may be sleet as well. It could be a sleet snow mix for some, and those heavier rates take over, and then that's where you start to really cash in. And then look at the timing. These are the wee hours into Saturday morning, right into the early morning, into the mid morning of Saturday, and that's when the timing is before you dry slot. So that when we look at that timing, and the timing may not work out because now some of the best that strengthening period, remember, does not necessarily allow those best rates to come through into central and northern New England, and that's where you may be able to miss out on potentially some. But we'll see. Some of those higher elevations may be able to make out still. So I wouldn't bet against that necessarily. You can see NAM showing that as well. I don't want to, just throw out P-type maps here, but again, it's suggestive. You take a look at just the euro here. You get a drink as well, but uh, let's see. Let's go to upper air temperature, and we're gonna go to again 850s. We'll go to the high res models as well, so you can see it. This is the OZ Euro just loaded out, so maybe we will get to see some of it. Let's go to in 3K. We'll go to the northeast and take a look. All right, so here's our 850 temps. All right, so there's the snow happening tonight, maybe and then maybe right start as rain for some people tomorrow night, but quickly and take a look. Those cold, look at that. You can see the banding from the dynamic cooling happening right here, right? That warm air coming in right off the ocean, meeting that cold air. And right in here is where I would be looking potentially for heavier snow, and see some of those thin margins, right? -1, -2, even -3 in some places. I would always give the edge to dynamic cooling, and then take a look at 925. You're actually colder at 925 than you are at 850. So 850, 800, I would say 750 to 850 looks like the warm nose here. So I'll be looking at those 850s closely, and you can see it kind of almost build back there. I mean, -4 right there. Those heavier rates trying to show that dynamic cooling happening, potentially a heavier band of snow. Maybe even I don't want to throw out the deformation band where potentially, but I that's where I'd be looking. Let me get NAM 12K, and that's kind of where I'd be looking. That band comes in right here, and man, it's hard not to look at this area right here, man. It is hard not to look at that area and say that there could be some snow. There could be some accumulating snow. I don't want to throw out some crazy totals because we kind of saw models come onto this really late. We actually saw the Euro AI like 10 days ago show something like this. So I got to give it some credit, like a long time ago. So I have to give that model some credit. I know there's been, some people are like, why do, people care about this model too much? I think it's a really good model inside of 5 to 7 days. I think it's done a compared to the us rest of the models. I got to give it the edge. After this winter, it's just this and the GraphCast Euro have done pretty here. But as you can see, Euro AI is showing that too. There's 850s, right? 850 we saw was the warm nose below zero. That's your 0 degree line. And again, it's going to kind of smooth it out a little bit because this isn't a super high res depiction here with precipitation, but just want to give the Euro AI some credit there. There you go. There's your trough at 500 there. You can see it. There's that big dig in the trough here, and there's your upper level low at the head, but again, still kind of disorganized, so no crazy. What was I going to say? Totals. Of course, I would procrastinate that. I will say we're seeing some pretty crazy, not crazy, but just crazier for April. We're seeing some pretty significant totals being, kind of thrown out here, and I don't know if I'm ready to. I don't know if I'm ready to commit myself to get that much, but you can't rule out, especially in places above 800 to 1,000 feet. You can't rule out the possibility for more than several inches of snowfall, and it all has to do with the specifics of what's happening and when it's happening. There's a lot of things where you have to throw out, um, right? Nighttime has to do, even though solar radiation throughout the night does play a factor on the ground, some still. You have to remember that just because it's April doesn't mean it can't snow, and we've seen plenty of times before. Even when it's May, it can snow. By the way, so we had some people. I was seeing it maybe earlier today, maybe yesterday too. Maybe saw it. I saw some people, kind of just dismissing it a little too much, and I'm like, no, you can't do that. When you look at the synoptic setup, you can't just dismiss certain aspects of this. And I really think there are some pretty classic features where if this were a couple months ago, we'd be probably talking about a lot more snow, but it's not. It's right now, so we look at it for what it is. I think there's some decent features. Again, here's the RGM showing that at 700 millibars. There's some juicy stuff, man. There's some juicy stuff here under the hood here at 700 millibars here. I mean, these some pretty strong forcing that I'd be looking at here in this area if we were looking at just the RGM. And when we even out this area, this is where the coldest air will be, more into New England, more especially those higher elevations northwest of 95 here. So northwest of 95 into southern and central New England. That is where I think the most snow will be. If you combine tonight and tomorrow night, that is where locally we could see at least several inches of snow total. You can't rule out those highest elevations from tonight and tomorrow night, seeing 6+ inches of snow potentially in some of those highest elevations in this area. That is what I will say for now. That's kind of what I'll put my forecast because I do have to put out some numbers. You guys want to know what to expect. I think general between tonight, but this could overperform. We showed why this could overperform. So I just wanted to be ultra clear on that. This could overperform, and then I don't want to throw out some of those high end totals you're seeing on maybe some of those runs, but you can't rule out more than 6 inches for I would say in this area here, northwest of 95. And I wouldn't rule out a coating to 2 in northwest Jersey as well into the Hudson Valley. Wouldn't rule it out potentially, and then there could be some coatings to 2 inches outside into these areas, maybe 1 to 3 into here, strip into White Mountains, especially White Mountains. We'll see some snow probably for sure. Some of those mountains into Maine as well could see some accumulating snow, but the focus of the heavier precipitation, just due to timing, uh, we'll be into here. I think this is where I expect the heaviest snow accumulation totals to be. I would say in total, right? I think 2 to 5 inches is a good bet. Um, Tonight, coding to 2, 1 to 3. Tomorrow night, um, 1 to 3 plus inches, and it could vary. And really, who's going to get the most snow? It's just whoever gets overlapped for the heaviest banding tonight and tomorrow night. And wherever that overlap happens between the highest totals, that's who's going to get the most snow out of this because it's a two-part event. Remember, that is one thing you have to remember with this. It's a two-part event. It's tonight and tomorrow night. Yes, Matt Doyle. Yes, the infamous 1977 May snowstorm. Yes. That's what I think I need to go a deeper dive in. I've looked it up before, but not a deep dive. I may need to pull out the Era 5 reanalysis for that one. But and also May 2 years ago, I'm not sure who saw accumulating snow, but it definitely snowed, and it was not like May 1st too. It was like a week or two into May as well. So we definitely had spring snow before, even into May. So it can happen, especially if you have elevation. So why don't we take a look at the euro here, see what it did. Alrighty. All right. It's kind of looks like it's a little bit more tucked with the 500. A little bit more tucked, maybe a little bit more consolidated at 500. Let's get to 700. Let's compare it to the last run here. 18Z, yeah, yep, more consolidated. Take a look at that. Wow, definitely more consolidated. Let's take a look at 850s now. It's bringing down a little bit more cold air um, further west on this run. Seems like a larger, widespread area. Not necessarily super colder. I'm gonna look at 700s as well. Let's see. It's a little bit tighter, so it's bringing maybe a little bit more warm air off the ocean. A little bit tighter gradient maybe here at temperature. That's why you draw a stronger, 700 millibar profile there. But also remember, Euro, it is a high res model technically, but not the perfect one. Let me go a little bit further. I didn't get as far as I really wanted here. There we go. Yeah, there we go. There's the dynamic cooling that you see it on the Euro. I was like, oh, it looks a little close. Yeah, it seems like it brings a little bit more warm air off the ocean, but a little bit tighter gradient with, so maybe a little bit heavier precipitation here with, as you can see on the Euro. Wonder if that shows up on the P-type map here. Mm, Only goes out to hour 33. But you can see Northwest Jersey this time gets into it. You can see the heavier precipitation, and there's more of it. So Euro's a little bit further west. Euro's saying that the 700 sets up a little bit further west. Here's one thing I would say about that. This is what the whole past few months things have tend to evolve a little bit messier and a little bit more so delayed than necessarily. So if I were to, I would say probably some of the other guidance, I would lean towards that that it's been I don't think we're going to be this organized at 700, unfortunately. Otherwise, this would be maybe some good snow. Just think where it's will probably be a little bit more delayed. Um, and you'll see that take a little bit more time, a little bit further east, probably just based on what's happened over the course of the last few months, last 4 or 5 months, I guess you could say. Uh, and yeah, but we did see more organization, like a lot of the rest of the guidance. Almost tries to snake tongue there. Almost tries. Yeah, to me, this looks like the head of 500 too, but it's a messy orientation, so really shouldn't worry about too much of the specifics of each single model run here. But it is interesting. I mean, that was a real. I mean, that's an impressive run right there. Hmm. Yep, Euros. That was definitely more interesting than before. Take a look at that on just the P-type map. You can notice that. 850s load out more. There we go. Any fun on the snow maps? Yep. A little bit of fun on the snow maps. See a little bit more widespread with these totals. But, these are just the snow maps, so they do their thing. If I show the Euro, I might as well show the rest of them. There's your NAM 3K. There's your NAM 12K. Those are some of the crazier totals I was talking about, showing nearly double-digit snowfall totals. We'll call that our boom scenario. There's your GFS, a little bit closer to the Euro. Maybe not a coincidence. The global's kind of like a little bit closer. Here, find your HRR. That is your HRR. You can see kind of a middle ground. A little bit further, kind of if you use a middle ground, I would say the NAM is kind of maybe a middle ground between the GFS and the Euro, roughly. So you take them all and you put an average on them. I know that's a layman's. It's not. It's just maybe it's a cop out. It's an easy way of doing things, but I would say that aligns best with my thoughts because it's a tricky situation. This is tricky. This is not an easy forecast. So some people barely mentioning it are and kind of dismissing it completely may not get a good look here, or they may be right for the wrong reasons potentially because there's definitely some stuff to support here, especially on that kind of sounding. I mean that NAM 3K sounding is impressive. That one not as much. That one very. I mean, take a look at that. -3 Omega in the Dendritic growth zone. DGZ just below 500, down to about 625. Warm nose quite not as prevalent, not quite as prevalent. Still about 33 at the surface here. Look at the lift in the all throughout the dendritic growth zone and around. Very impressive. Very, very impressive sounding. I mean, I would look at that and I would say those are 1 to 2 inch per hour rates, no matter the time of year. Now, if it was April during the day, I would say a little bit harder. But April at night into the early morning, where the ground has now had more time to cool, right? That makes a difference too, right? Early evening makes a little bit of a difference. The ground is a little bit warmer, makes it a little bit harder to accumulate after the solar radiation during the day. But later at night, overnight, right? A lot of this happening. Take a look at the timing. Right, we're looking at 10Z and Saturday, so we're looking at the wee hours of the morning here on Saturday. So this is, I mean, take a look. Now, dynamic cooling working all the way into Connecticut. That would snow in Connecticut, believe it or not. This little warm nose right here, it would hold off. -2 omega in the dendritic growth zone, well saturated, very impressive soundings. So we got to keep a close eye here, even towards I-95 areas, because look what you're doing here. You're pumping this fire hose of moisture, right? Remember, it's still April, but into this cold pool of temps here, and it's just meeting on the other side. So somewhere could thump potentially for hours late tomorrow night into early Saturday morning. So I got to keep a close eye on this, and that is how you would overperform. I think the NAM is a good example of how you would overperform. But NAM is also something that might overdo the precip a little bit with something like this. Find the HRR. Here's the HRR. There we go. See, the HRR is a little bit more messy with how this plays out. I would lean towards that. Slightly messier, I would say, but shows a little bit of a depiction, a little bit different. You can see that fire hose that comes in a little bit, maybe a mini fire hose. Working off the ocean, we're backing the flow off the ocean, right? Negatively tilted trough, deep digging trough too. So deep moisture axis here. I mean, there's some factors here that make me look at this, excuse me, and say that this could perform, above what some people are expecting. And a lot of it, again, has to do with the timing. You're looking at late tomorrow night into early Saturday morning. That's really good timing to be able to get something like that. If you were wanting to get an April snowstorm, this is how you would kind of manufacture it if you want to get at least several inches of snow. So let's take a look at the future forecast here. Kind of do it like a broadcast, Matt. If you have any questions in YouTube, um, yeah, they are welcomed, and X as well. Sorry, I got my train of thought got cut off on YouTube. You can ask questions too on X. Don't worry, no matter where. Again, I apologize kind of for the break of streaming and just doing videos, but I would expect that more for severe weather. Maybe we will do some streams for severe weather. I got to promise at least one stream. And okay, there we go. Don't worry, we're not canceling the stream yet on YouTube. Don't worry. But I just been busy. We had a loss in the family, and also new puppies are a lot, especially when you're doing a lot of the work. It is a lot to manage, but so making sure that he gets the best life possible is very very important, and I will. I know apologies, but I will value that over you guys. So I apologize, but I don't at the same time. But yeah, so that's kind of we had a lot going on, but so that's the HRR snow map. Uh, but let's go to just go here. 500 millibars. Well, maybe a trough to keep an eye on next week for some severe weather in the southeast. Maybe keep an eye on severe weather next week. right? This is not a long lasting, I wouldn't call this long lasting cold air necessarily. But that is a deep digging trough. So we'll keep an eye on the specifics of that because if that were to be further southeast, you can see the snow that happens on the northern side of that. That's a dynamic system. And I would argue severe weather could be possible even on a positively tilted trough. I'd argue severe weather could be possible to keep an eye on the southeast side of that 500 millibar vort. And upcoming again, another deep digging trough, strong western ridge. Um, and I guess we can debate the specifics of that, but a that would be a mess. Let's say it's safe. Let's take a look at 850s just to check it's not the fun stuff. Checking the cold air source, and it may be the fun stuff. Oh, interesting. Interesting. So maybe winter weather. Maybe it is not quite done yet. Could be could be could be some fun, and so we'll have to keep an eye on that. We'll go to the euro, and we'll go to the euro AI. Just we're looking at the future forecast, so you can at least get an idea from my thoughts, so it doesn't feel like I'm abandoning you all. But again, euro kind of showing that strong 500 millibar vort signature, and I would say that supports potential to keep an eye on severe weather early next week, maybe into the Midwest, Southeast. Here's where I kind of want to draw this. That's kind of where I would watch maybe for severe weather potential next week. Northeastern fringe areas would be less favored, maybe potentially, but Euro AI. Let's see, does Euro AI show anything like the GFS does? Maybe not, not even all that close, but Euro AI beyond I think 7 days still has a good amount of flaws to keep an eye on. So to look at the Canadian. Canadian is a little bit closer to the GFS, maybe. So that's kind of what I on store in the meantime. So maybe something. I think it's gonna continue to be probably active chances for severe weather. Maybe not as active as it was last weekend into early this week, but potentially still, one or two, troughs come in a week that you got to keep an eye on. Where, you know, uh, on that southeast side, yeah, of the 500, 500 millibar signature, got to keep an eye for severe weather that comes up, especially with the right timing. It could all come. Again, you look for factors. Moisture off the Gulf is one thing. You love to see negatively. If you want severe weather, you want to see negatively tilted troughs are always good too. Strong 500 millibar jet streak as well. Um, Not necessarily in this exact spot. I'm just showing in general. Moisture from the Gulf, strong 500 millibar uh, uh, jet, and then also a tight thermal gradient too. So a strong 500 millibar vort feature always can help to bring a tighter thermal gradient when we're looking at broad scale severe weather stuff. So those are different things you can look at that can help create those steeper lapse rates. So to say where you can get that that cold air aloft, and we look at the same thing in the wintertime where if you quickly move across the column from the top to the surface and you go from colder to warmer really fast. That's how you create dynamic weather. That's just winter weather 101. We look at thermal gradients all the time, and winter weather, severe weather, they're very important. A little bit less um, in hurricanes, specifically more at the surface, but because they rely on the warm water from the ocean. But yeah, so that's kind of what we're looking at here in the upcoming. I don't want to go too much farther and beyond. It's not worth it. But if we don't have any more questions or comments, I appreciate everybody tuning in. I wasn't expecting too many to, but I appreciate those that did. My new dog, was quiet the whole time, which is a miracle and a blessing. If any of you have had a new puppy before, you know how difficult that is. But luckily, he's asleep and he's gonna get to see his first snow in a little bit, and hopefully, he'll stop eating all the leaves and sticks outside. That would be awesome. I'd rather have him eat snow than anything else. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. I'll be sure to keep you updated with more puppy pics and more what's going on with the snow. Maybe we stream tomorrow night as well, so keep an eye on that. Especially if things are looking pretty, continuing to look interesting. Keep an eye on that. So again, I appreciate you all tuning in, no matter what time. If it's tomorrow morning at this point or a couple hours after, just I appreciate your all support. And if you don't mind hitting a like, it very much helps the algorithm. We're being actually close to being able to make some money off this channel, believe it or not, and it's only because of you guys. Really has nothing to do with me. It requires you guys to watch what I'm doing. So I appreciate everybody that does that. Never really asked of it until I was like, you know what, well, let's go for it. And so here we are. Again, appreciate y'all. And shorter stream, but not a ton more.